How's it going, guys? Today I have a hopefully pretty short video on the Warlock class that I run in Dark and Darker. So I'm primarily a solo player. Here is E on the leaderboards. Currently sitting in the 3rd spot. And I wanted to make this video to try to give you guys a bit of insight into how I played the class over the course of, I don't know how many games exactly, kind of doing this on the fly, about 500 matches. Now that might sound like a lot, but there's a couple things I need to point out. First, I didn't think that I would be grinding AP like this when this season first started. I was mostly playing for fun, and my original goal was Pathfinder for the Skelly skin. And I think some of these stats kind of reflect that, especially since we can see I've only killed the troll 103 times, and when I started my troll farm, that is pretty much when I really tried to start getting that AP and getting to the top ranks. So I probably made about 80% of my 100k in the last 100-ish successful raids. So the first thing that I think we should talk about, sorry, that's my dog barking in the background, is our soccer stats. These are what I refer to as the soccer stats. I guess they're now like, what, Svadker stats, but we're going to stick to soccer. Strength, I completely ignore. Don't think that you really need it for a spell casting warlock. Vigor is a great stat. This in conjunction with max HP rolls can really boost your survivability. Agility, very underrated stat. A lot of people consider it a dead roll because in the past it had been only movement speed, but I still think movement speed is the strongest stat in the game. So my number one priority is probably agility. Dexterity, also ignore this. At least for the Warlock caster, this isn't important. Will, you might think, is what you would run on somebody who uses magic to their advantage, but I found in a lot of testing, not just this wipe, but every single one before, that will doesn't really scale nearly as much as you'd think it would. Much more important to run magical damage, flat damage bonuses, and it's more important your weapon of choice that's delivering that damage. Knowledge. Knowledge is a very strong stat, and I would recommend trying to get this at a base minimum of 35. That's where I felt that my casts felt very smooth, very quick. There was no sluggishness to them. Just overall feels very consistent. For the Warlock, I think pushing this past 40 might be overkill, and that you'd be better suited pushing that into more movement speed, or maybe even some will in that at that point. Resourcefulness. Cool stat, since we are going to need interaction speed for that loot pile at the end of the cave troll, but the loot pile is not going to hit us, but players will, so let's focus on that. Looking at the details, it's important to note that this kit that I have is a very fat one. This is a huge kit, and you're not maybe going to have this exact kit, but this is something that you can build over the course of a wipe. I also have another kit that I'm going to throw on that I built over the course of a day to kind of show you some of the differences and see what's manageable and what's not. Some of the important things of note would be the HP. I think 140 is really strong. Anything that's over 125 is pretty good, but this is pushing that upper boundary. As you can see, our movement speed is up there. This is practically the movement speed cap. We're only 7 away from it. This is awesome. I'm using everything I can to get as much movement speed, including a pair of boots that I got from Usain Bolt himself. Plus, you know, the skin that gives us more movement. This is really the upper echelon of that boundary. There's not a whole lot else to look at. PDR and MDR might get looked at sometimes, and you might be curious, but I am not focusing on these stats whatsoever. HP is by far way more versatile than these two stats are. Your physical power bonus and magical bonus, like I said, they're not a focus at all in this build, and I do a lot of damage. Speaking of that, let's just really quick go over the damage that I do with this kit, and I'll show you some of the pieces. You can take your time, pause the video to really stare at the stats and kind of get an idea of maybe what you want to build for your kit. So with the magic staff, I push out 45 Curse of Pains. And with the spell book, I push out 38 Curse of Pains. Pretty good damage. And now let's take a look at a more realistic kit, something that I put together only over the course of a day. With this kit, my magic staff hits for 40 Curse of Pains. And the spellbook pushes for 34 Curse of Pains. Here's some of those soccer stats if you wanted to check them out. And here's some of those other stats in comparison. Remember, this kit was built over the course of a day for most of the pieces. Some of them I might have had lying around, like these boots and these gloves. Everything else was bought off of the market. All right. And with that, I think we should move on to our perks and skills. I call these passives, so you might hear me say that. The first one is anti-magic. Second one is dark reflection, and it ties in with our third, soul collector. These two together can combine to about 24 to 25 damage when the enemy hits you. My final one is Malice. I choose Malice because I don't run dark magic spells, so this gives me a little extra damage on those Curse of Pains and Flame Walks. For skills, I defer to Phantomize. In the past, I've used Blow of Corruption, but I found that Blow of Corruption led to me taking more risks and oftentimes less reward. Phantomize is a good option for those oh shit moments where you really have to get away, and when those pesky rogues come out of invis to try to steal your loot. And obviously we're running the spell memory for our spells. Speaking of which, our major source of damage is going to be Curse of Pain. This amplified with all that true damage is the butter for all of our damage. I use Flame Walker as a zoning method. This helps me with those really W key warriors like the barbarians and the fighters and rogues. We run Hellfire because we do troll farming, and the whole point of this video is how to squeeze out a little more AP. If you don't know how to do the troll, maybe in the future I'll put out a video, but there's already some really good ones that you can check out. And the last two kind of work together. We run the Life Drain and Hydra. Life Drain is just kind of what you have to deal with when you don't run Magic Healing. Magic Healing is not necessarily bad, but it's way too difficult to build. And if you build in Magic Healing, you're giving up some stats somewhere. So I prefer to just do Life Drain and Hydra. It goes with Life Drain. We all know the method, but Hydra itself is really powerful, helps you clear corners, helps you trap your enemies, and it can take off mob density away from you because it pulls so much aggro from them. And again, I think that's about it. I think that's all that I really have for this video. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an idea of how I build my kit. And hopefully this helps you guys get past that little push, especially those of you that are in the exemplar. And hopefully you'll be enjoying these cool exclusive skins that we're going to be getting at the end of the season. Thanks a lot, guys.